Direct from Montreal, Canada, this is Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.
We are speaking, well, look at this video with the one and only Francis Ruiz of Buckcherry, now of Buckcherry. Bonjour, Francis, as we say here in Montreal. How are you?
All right, good.
Good. So we've known each other for many years, going all the way back to the days of Samantha 7, which is, C.C. DeVille's band. I always thought that was a delightful record. Maybe that's maybe not the right word, but I thought it was a great record. It was a fun pop punk record, pop rock record. I mean, it was.
Yeah, I mean, for what it was really good. I had a great time doing it. I still have fun every time I listen to it. And it's just, it's a shame it didn't get out a little further than to a wider audience than it did, but it's still fun. Some I'm proud of.
Yeah, great record. Just it wasn't the time for it, but of course now you've done this Buckcherry tour. You've done 150 some shows in 200 days or something ridiculous.
Yeah, we were out this year for 2019. We did 154 shows, and we were out. I counted the days that we were away from home was 242 days. So
that's insane. 240. People never think about that with a rock star. They go, "Oh, hey, Buckcherry was in Montreal in July, and we haven't seen them in 2 years." But all the time, you're not home, and that means
our families haven't seen us in the same amount of time.
Yeah, I'm sitting here with my dog here. I can't imagine 242 days not being with her. It's
right. The
sacrifices that rock stars make, or rock bands, or touring artists make, is sometimes not appreciated, I think, from fans. They just go, but let's quickly talk about Warpaint. You obviously didn't play on the album.
Right.
But I have to say, for me as a fan, a longtime fan, I find that you fit in so well with the band. The people go, well, it's not the original members. Oh, shut up. Go see them live. Live is where it counts. And if you were horrible live, I would say it. Listen, they're horrible live. Don't bother.
Yeah,
but you're still delivering at the same high level. Talk to me about sort of getting in there and any pressure, because now you're not the original guy. Now you're not the original guy.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be some pressure, and yet you go to the shows and the band sounds great.
Yeah, well, it's we all just fit in and clicked so well. We all. We've said multiple times, we're all from the same generation. We all grew up listening to the same music, and we all came from the same scene in LA that was happening. And so, I mean, we just naturally just clicked right together, and the thing is, I don't really feel, any kind of pressure from that. The fans have been just amazing and very, very, very into it.
Well, they've been welcoming, I think.
Yeah. And the thing is, I'm not trying, I'm just trying to do the most justice to what, Xavier and the first drummer, I'm drawing a blank. Well, what was done before me, basically. I'm just trying to do, justice to that.
But let's be fair. For a lot of fans, including myself, it's the 15 lineup that really count. And
the classic lineup.
Yeah,
yes.
I don't want to discount the first lineup and the first, Lit Up and all great stuff. But then there was that period of and then 15 came out and it was like, ooh, okay.
Right.
And so Xavier and Keith, and that's when people went, oh, that's, sometimes it's not about the original lineup. I mean, who really wants whatever Al Atkins singing in Judas Priest? Nobody does,
Right.
But okay, so we'll talk some more about Buckcherry. But one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because you were for a long time. I mean, going back 25 years almost.
Yeah.
You were a drum tech, and a lot of fans, we talk about drum techs and guitar techs and road managers and tour man, and they're sort of these magical terms that we throw around, but we don't really have an understanding. So, first of all, you've done Thin Lizzy, you've done Mötorhead, you were drum teching with Slayer, you were drum teching with Scorpions. Is it the same job with those bands? I mean, is the drum tech the same? Is it essentially the same, or Slayer is different than Thin Lizzy because the music's different?
Well, I've been lucky to work with groups that are great groups to work for, and legendary people, Anthrax included in that one. And I guess when you're touring at a certain level with those people, it's kind of the same, and it's still a chemistry thing no matter what, and it's not just with the band that you're working for. It's a chemistry with everybody that's on that tour. The bigger the band and the bigger the tour is, the more people you have to actually be around all the time and get along with and make work. But, I've been fortunate to be in organizations that have just run everything amazing, and it's been awesome. Black Label Society included, it's Zach's, very dear, and I've learned so much from him, volumes from him, and just the way he handles touring and everything. So,
all bands working at a much, much higher level.
Right. Yeah. And I take something from every single one of those bands that I work for. I think of it as a, I'm very fortunate to be able to tour with all these people that I admired growing up and listening to music and in a different way than, bands tour together and stuff like that, but I don't think they ever get that bond and that closeness that I've been fortunate to get with, the musicians that I've been on tour with and working with and stuff. Paul Bostaph, Charlie Benante, Mickey D. Everybody out there that I've worked for. It's just we remain close as friends. It's great.
It's great. So let me ask you about your drumming style, because when you come in and you talk about those guys like Charlie and Paul and stuff, they obviously don't drum alike, and you have to go in there and dial in the drums and sort of get that sound. And sometimes you have to run through the songs, whether Charlie is sick or maybe he's not in the venue. You sometimes have to run through the songs. How has that affected your playing, and how important was it for you to be able to go do, Indians or whatever?
Well, I have had to fill in for a lot of people. I actually played with Mötorhead.
Wow.
And then for Mickey D, but Mickey's the one who actually was the, number one cheerleader saying, you're the guy, you have to do this and stuff like that. So, I've been fortunate to work with a lot of people that I already admired as drummers and stuff like that too. So a lot of times being able to emulate their parts, if I have to fill in or just, when we're doing the technical thing throughout the day, it's not necessarily filling in, but if we're just doing a sound check for the front of house guy, it's like you still have to be able to play with the same energy, with the same kind of feel as those guys. So that way the sound guy can do what he's supposed to do. If you're playing, a hip hop beat, sound checking for Slayer, the sound man's not going to have what he needs to be able to make it sound like Slayer if you're not giving him something that sounds like Slayer, So it was real fun just to, be in that position and do that. Plus I got a firsthand front row seat to watching these guys every single night too. So it's like, it was great.
It was great. But you must obviously learn something in terms of your own playing, where you'll hear the Thin Lizzy songs for a while and then you'll hear the Slayer songs for a while and you'll go, ooh, that's interesting. I'm going to try that in my own practice.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've taken stuff from every single person that I've worked for. You're
talking drum parts, not yeah, not merch in the back,
and gear and everything else. No.
Look at that guitar back there. That belonged to just kidding.
That's one thing you can always learn. And there's always there's always something you can learn. You're never going to be complete with what you have, the arsenal. And if you can incorporate something that somebody else is doing that's interesting, that's not normally what you would do, it's pretty awesome. I remember even, when I was rehearsing in a rehearsal studio with a former band of mine called 40 Cycle Hum. Mm-hmm. I used to get up to go to the restroom and used to come back, and my singer used to sit down on the drum kit and start playing a song that we were like trying to work out. And I would sit at the door and I would listen to him because what he was playing was completely not what I was doing. But it was cool because it was something that I wouldn't have ever thought of, you know? And then I would come in the room and be like, all right, show me what you were doing. And then I would, you know, redo that. And then all of a sudden it just birth of a new idea and sound and everything. So,
well, I want to take you up on that because you didn't play on Buckcherry's Warpaint, the latest album,
right.
But you did get to do the tour and have to play those songs. And we had a discussion out in Ottawa where you said, listen, I'm playing the parts more the way I want to play them, the more way I feel. Not, I don't want to make it sound like you're obnoxious about it, but, you know, like more in my style. Talk to me about that, playing these Buckcherry songs, but yet still making them your own and not necessarily playing them exactly like the album, maybe adding a fill here. Talk to me about sort of being the new guy and having to make these songs yours without sort of straying too far from what the fans know and love.
Right. Well, I mean, you know, that's something that a lot of drummers sometimes have to deal with, that come into situations that there's been a catalog of music that's already been put out. You know, of course, I'm gonna play it the way I want. For most of the catalog, I'm trying to do as much justice to the parts that were tracked because they were good. You know, they worked for me. The more I listen to it, the more I'm like, oh, that's really clever, you know? And so I try to do that. But there's little places where I hear just normally, oh, I would have done this, or I would have done this little flair, or embellished that a little bit, or something. And, you know, Stevie and the guys have been really great. And, you know, from the moment that I joined the band, you know, Stevie said, make it your own. You know, he says, make it do what you were going to do. And with the trust and faith that I knew not to step all over the vocals, you know, I'm not trying to drum solo through the whole thing. I'm not trying to change the song because that would be stupid to change the songs, you know, and you can only take so many liberties from something that has already been established and out there. Otherwise it's retarded. I know me as a drummer, when I go watch other guys play parts that they didn't write, and they change it so much, it frustrates the heck out of me because I already know those parts and I love them, and they don't do it, and it's just the same thing, you know.
Yeah,
guitar are the same way, you know. If you're gonna go watch somebody play Randy Rhoads licks, you want to hear exactly verbatim those licks. If he changes it and makes liberties on his own, you're gonna be like, who is this guy, you know? And so.
well, especially on those what we call those singable solos, you know, you hear like "Walk This Way," you go and then you hear some guy going and you're like, whoa,
Right. Yeah,
the
yeah,
fuck
yeah,
was
yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
You know, so let me ask you this, and this might be a personal question, but why take the job with Buckcherry? You're touring with Slayer, you're touring with Anthrax, you're touring with Thin Lizzy. You've got these big name things, you've got this huge organization. You know, it's, I don't want to say it's reasonably easy, but you don't have the pressure of the fans going, oh, the new, you're in the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
You can move from tour to tour. You've got these, you know, Scorpions and Slayer are doing arenas and festivals, and it's big and it's powerful. And Buckcherry is great. We love Buckcherry. But, you know, it's down and dirty. It's a tour bus. It's long hours. It's 250 some days. You're the new guy. Oh, my God. Like, why go through that? Why not just say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to stay on these comfy buses and go over to the Ritz-Carlton with Slayer, and everybody's going to be happy.
Sure, and I can do that, you know. But I didn't start, you know, since the first time that I got, you know, started playing drums. Playing is what I wanted to do, you know. And it was by a fluke that I got into teching, actually, you know, because I had already actually, when I was playing with Samantha Seven. And I, you know, played with Great White for a short amount of time during that time too. That was all before I had ever teched for anybody. You know, it was James Kotek that actually called me out and said, hey, dude, I know you're a player, but, you know, would you consider coming out on the road with me? Because, you know, their tech was an older guy who was having some health problems. And I was like, geez, Scorpions, tour around the world, get paid great money. Let me think about that. Yeah. You know, so, and that's kind of how I got into that. But I was always a player to begin with, you know, and so just for the passion of playing, I never stopped playing. You know, I was doing projects the entire time that I've been teching, and have been fortunate to do tours here and there and albums and work with a lot of great people. But you know, and I have had other opportunities to play with other people, but their schedules weren't full enough, you know. And honestly, as a tech, I was making great money, and I had a year, you know, full year of work, so I couldn't really make the transition to somebody that was only going to play a week in January or a week in February.
Well, and that's the thing that sometimes fans don't think about. But as a tech, you essentially can be on the road 365 days, whereas as a band, you can't.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Buckcherry cannot do an entire year, night after night after night, but you could certainly do, you know, 3 weeks with Slayer, and then 3 weeks with Anthrax, and then 6 weeks with whatever, Thin Lizzy, and then like, you know, sometimes there's a financial reality of it's nice to be in a band, but if Buckcherry does 10 festival dates and then stays home, I can't make that work. Right. So, you know, we have to go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, you know, and Buckcherry is a hard-working band. You know, there are some bands out there that stay out all year. You know, Anthrax is another band that works all year long too. But you know, Buckcherry, for one, I love the music. You know, I love as much as, you know, I'm grateful for you saying that it's such a great fit. I feel that way too, you know, and to have that opportunity to play with these guys, and the fact that they worked their tails off, you know, made it all make sense. It's like, okay, now I get to play, which is what I've always done, you know, and with a great bunch of guys and work, and it all makes sense, you know. So it's an awesome thing, and nobody's going through the motions, you know. Everybody's fired up. Like if we're just a bunch of 15-year-olds.
Well, you know, I was talking to Stevie recently, and he still thinks that there's a lot to prove.
There is.
It's not we're a nostalgia act and we're going to go give you Crazy Bitch and Lit Up and, you know, go home. There is this creativity, whether it's Spray Gun War or Josh Todd and the Conflict or Buck. They want to just make something new, and if it's not within Buckcherry, well, they're going to go find another project, and they just don't want to sit at home and play Lit Up for the 100th time in, you know, which is exciting. In terms of the band, if a teching situation came up with a huge band, the Rolling Stones call you, is there something that could convince you to go tech again, or now that you're in Buckcherry, you just want to be a player, and if Buckcherry ends, you're just going to go find another playing opportunity? How do you sort of see the future in terms of teching and playing?
Well, in a perfect world, I'll just be able to keep playing. You know, I never aspired to be a tech, and no disrespect to it. You know, when I was teching, I approached it, and I wanted to do my best job ever, and I approached it, you know, seriously. You know, I wasn't like this bitter guy, like, oh, I should be playing, I wish I was playing. No, I was like, no, this is the function that I'm doing. I'm very fortunate to be working with the amazing set of individuals that I'm working with, you know, so I held that in high regards as well. But in a perfect world, you know, my passion is playing, you know, and so, you know, if all goes well, I'll be able to continue playing.
So let me ask you this. What can you bring to the Buckcherry sound? We know Xavier had his style and the way he played, and the 15 album is brilliant. And, well, we'll just call him the first guy because we don't remember his name.
Right.
And I'm kidding. but you know, they had that sound. What can you bring? Like, where would you like to take the drum sound in Buckcherry? Do you want more blast beats? Do you want more rhythms? Do you want more, you know, do you want congas? Like, where do you sort of see it going?
Yeah. Well, you know, Buckcherry is a rock and roll band, you know, and I want to keep it a rock and roll band, you know, as far as what I want to bring to it. I have a little different style than maybe
The first guy.
Anybody, well, Xavier or anybody else. But Xavier was a solid rock drummer, and I love that. I love what he put on the records, and that's what people love too. So what I want to bring to it is just more of that, but just with my own flair. You know what I mean? I come from a bit of a heavier background, so I'm going to approach it a little bit differently.
Well, okay, but let me talk. Okay, so let's talk about what is your style, because you look at Charlie Benante and we're like, that's the blast beat king.
Right.
You look at Peter Criss of Kiss, because you got Kiss in the background there, and you go swing. You look at Steven Adler. There's a bit of a swing. Where do you sort of see yourself stylistically? Are you a sort of meat and potatoes guy? Are you a basher? Are you a blast beat? Are you swinger? What are you?
Swinger.
Don't tell your wife that you're a swinger. It's terrible.
No, one thing that Stevie and I had in common is our love for Tommy Aldridge. And he's one of my biggest influences. And as far as rock music, I love Tommy's flair. And that's the kind of thing that I want to bring to it. Tommy's a powerhouse drummer, and he just seems to always play exactly what the song needs. In my opinion. And a lot of people had an issue with Tommy when he played in Thin Lizzy, because Brian Downey and Tommy Aldridge are two very different players. Brian Downey was very much a swinger. He was a hand player. Tommy Aldridge is a bottom player. He uses a lot of bass drums and stuff like that. I come and he drives the band where Brian kind of sits back and plays backbeat a little bit, but if you watch Tommy Aldridge play the Thin Lizzy stuff, he destroys it, in a good way to me. And that energy, and that's where I feel drumming, is when somebody comes and does that to music. That's where I feel it. So that's kind of what I want to bring to Buckcherry. I want to take what they've already done and add an extra set of balls to it.
Some flair, yeah. And by the way, you're right. When you look at Whitesnake and what they've done with Tommy, he just takes those songs and he just gives them balls, right? It's unbelievable. Now, of course, you worked with Tommy Aldridge, and you mentioned Thin Lizzy. There was John Sykes in the band at the time. Mm-hmm. They put out a live album, I think somewhere around 2001. Mm-hmm. It just sounds fantastic. John singing those songs is so good, and their version, that live version of Cold Sweat, for example,
right,
untouchable. First of all, were you part of that touring entity back in sort of 2000, 2001, or was it before?
No, I was after that. I was around
2004.
No, actually later than that. It was like 5 to 7, somewhere around there.
So, listen, a lot has been made of John Sykes. He was supposed to have a solo album. It didn't happen. The record company dropped it. He's the mystery man. He's sort of the 80s version of Vinnie Vincent, the guy who's disappeared.
Yeah.
What was he like on the... Yeah. I mean,
Jakey Lee for a while, it's like, two of my favorite guitar players, John Sykes, Jakey Lee, and they disappear for a long time. It's frustrating.
Guitar players are just crazy. No, but what was it like being around John Sykes? Was he sort of a brooding sort of guy, or was he just a regular nice guy and all this? I mean,
John and I got along stellar. He was so funny. He was just the attitude that he took with everything, and it was just so funny, and he took everything in stride. But he's a very unique person, and I mean that in a good way. To me, there was no ego involved. It's just like he was just this guy that was this guitar player, and he just loved his guitar and playing, and that's really what was important to him. I love the guy.
I do too. I love the guy that I know through the music. I don't know him personally.
Right.
I'd love to, but also you toured with Mötorhead. So just quickly, Lemmy. Everybody talks about Lemmy. We love Lemmy. I had a chance years ago to drive Lemmy around Montreal. It was one of the strangest but funnest nights. It was And I'll just real quick. It was in the end of May, which is normally in Montreal. You know, it's like 25 degrees Celsius. So for Americans, like 75 degrees. Normally, that's May, right? It's like 75 degrees outside. And this May, it was snowing. And Lemmy's sitting in the back of the car, and he's like, "This is why I don't want to fucking come to your country, and this is why I come in May and not in January." And he was cursing out the snow, and it was the funniest. Anyway, so we drove him around, and he had a good time. And then the show was great, but he was like, "I don't want to come to this. This is why I chose May and not March."
Wow. Yeah, I've never seen him like that.
But he was don't get me wrong, he wasn't mad. He was like comical.
Okay.
Like a Benny Hill kind of frustration kind of thing. Not a fuck you, more like, what the fuck is this? Like funny, like a Howard Stern, if you want, kind of thing. It was hilarious. But what was it like being with him? Because he's obviously revered by fans, especially metal fans.
Yeah, being around Lem is the same thing. I mean, out of everybody and anybody that I've ever toured with, Lem really was the real deal. You know what I mean? And by that I mean it's like, I've been on tours where, the guys in the band, they'll stay in their hotel rooms all day long, and they show up to the gig just with enough time to get in the headspace to go on stage. The minute they get off stage, they go back, and they don't want anything to do with any of the peripheral stuff to do with stuff, to do with the show, the festival, what have you, and with Lem was the guy that never wanted to do that. He wanted to be right in the thick of things all the time. His dressing room could literally be a vinyl tent right next to the stage, to where you just hear every single band blasting all day long, and that's where he wanted to be. It's like he wanted to be right in the middle of it. He loved the lifestyle. He loved the music. He loved everything about it. It's like you just put his little gambling machine in his tent, give him a glass of Jack Daniels and Coke, and you're good to go.
Or vodka. I remember at this Montreal show, they as a runner, they made me go out and get 2 40-ounces of vodka.
Right.
And I put them in the band room, and they went, no. Those go in Lemmy's room. And I was like, okay. And he came out with both of them, and he was drinking away, and Phil had margaritas. It was margaritas everywhere.
Right.
And I was like, he's going to finish a 40-ounce of vodka and go play. And he did. And I was like, okay, I'd be dead, or I'd be in a hospital getting, pumped out. And
yeah, I've never seen him act or appear drunk, anything. He's always been super even-keeled, very professional.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just,
maybe it was just perception. Maybe he was sort of going like this and dropping it behind his back. The rock and roll lifestyle, of course.
Right.
You also work with the Scorpions. Scorpions, easily one of my top 3, or let's say top 5.
Right.
What was it like being around Klaus all the time? I mean, to me, he's this underrated voice. People go, oh, the greatest vocalist of all time, Robert Plant and Paul Stanley and Klaus doesn't get in that discussion a lot, or certainly not in American media. And you're like,
right.
Well, it's fucking Klaus Meine. What do you mean he's not in the discussion?
Yeah. I don't know why he's overlooked. I mean, everybody loves the Scorpions. Everybody loves Klaus's voice. Maybe just because he's not as big of a offstage personality as some of these other people are, and he's very the epitome of professional. He's very low key on tour. And all he thinks about is pretty much the show, and so being around Klaus is, I can't really see any crazy stories about that. Whereas like Rudolph is the complete rock star that he appears to be, and loves it, and he's funny, and he's crazy, and he's just comical, and he's always laughing, but all those guys have the greatest hearts and just really love their fans. But they're a machine, it's like, this is what they do, this is all they know. And they go in there and they just do it. They just keep doing it. And just keep doing it.
When did you work with the Scorpions? What tour was it? Was it Humanity?
It was way before that. It was uh, actually right after the Samantha 7 record. Um,
You
when
went
we
out for Eye to Eye.
right after Eye to Eye, like they did the Motley Crue Scorpions tour.
Eye to Eye, Unbreakable.
Unbreakable, yeah,
That's a great album. If people
yeah.
haven't heard it, by the
So it was
way.
about 2001, I think, that I started working with them.
Wow.
And then did it over a span of 11 years. It was, so it was.
What a great band. Now we're at half an hour, so I'll wind down here. But just real quick, in terms of duties as a drum tech, do your duties is it just the live arena where you show up and you're at the live show and the band's on tour, or were you also responsible in the studio when the band went to record Unbreakable or went to record whatever? Are you also part of that?
I was, I went into the studio with the Scorpions. Unbreakable we did with and Humanity actually we did with Desmond Child. So I sat in the room and watched that whole process go on. I was in the studio with Mötorhead also. I was in the studio with Dio at one point, and so yeah, often if it's convenient, like if they're I was living in LA at that point, so if they were tracking in LA and working in LA, yeah, of course they would want me down there and to do it. It's not always feasible for that to happen with the text, but in my case.
But in your case, it was. All right, let me quickly ask you about the Desmond Child thing, because I interviewed Desmond a couple of times, and I personally think that Humanity Hour 1 is easily top 3 records of the Scorpions. It just got ignored because it came out in 2007.
Right.
Had it been 1987, probably would have been 4 times, 5 times platinum easily. Desmond tells the story of he agreed to work with the band, but he wanted Klaus to go off and sing with, what was his name? Eric Leverett, or what was the guy he wanted? Anyway, he said, go sing with this guy. And I'll punch up the name in a second. Were you part of that, or were you around and heard some of the discussions like, we're going to work with Desmond, but he's going to send Klaus out to get vocal lessons? Like, really?
Well, I think the whole concept with when they got Desmond is they were looking at him as the person that was going to be able to revamp their career and give them a whole new look, give them a whole new sound. He even changed their logo for that album. It's not the classic logo, and he wanted to, he had a whole regimen. I'm going to get them all gym memberships. They're going to go to the gym and get lean and mean and do all this other stuff. So I think it was kind of like an entire huge big plan of, reintroducing the Scorpions to a whole lot of people, like what happened with John Bon Jovi. John Bon Jovi reinvented himself, and all of a sudden he was massive again. Well,
he cut his hair.
Yeah. But he started appealing to a whole different audience, and I think that's what the whole thing was with Desmond, and they got a bunch of different writers in there, and which was a first for them also, because they've always kind of been, doing all the songwriting on their own.
On their own. I'm gonna find the name of this guy that Desmond was working with, but. Yeah, I mean that album is really, really strong, and the tour that came out after was great. And of course, to me, it relaunched them because they started being a little more concerned about melodies and a lot more concerned.
Who was very very important in that whole process was James Michael. From 6am. He did. He co-wrote all that stuff too.
Eric Vitro is the name.
Eric Vitro. Okay, I heard that. But James Michael, went in there and he had co-written a bunch of those songs. John Five was a co-writer on, I think, a couple of the songs. Yeah. They have their whole little circle of writers that they all, I was in the room when they sat around in the little circle and listened to music and were like, okay, and then Klaus went and they made changes and made it something to their own. But I swear, if you would have listened to some of the stuff before they even, when they were hearing it, James Michael is such an amazing writer and producer and singer and everything else that you would have swore that it was already like a Scorpions demo. It was that good and geared specifically for them. So
since you heard the demos, and then I'll wrap up. But you hear these James Michaels demos, and they're as good as the Scorpions. Does the band come to you as one of the crew guys and say, what do you think? Or, do they sometimes look for advice, or is it really like, no, we make the songs, or do they ask the crew guys, like, do you think this is like, are you part of the team in a sense?
James used to ask me, come to me with stuff like that. The rest of the guys didn't. And just me out of respect for the process and the people that we're working for, I didn't want to put my 2 cents in there unless they really did come and ask me. They're very qualified to do this on their own without my input. But if they did ask, I might have said some stuff. But I thought it was great, everything that they were doing. So.
Yeah, I thought so too. So where do we go from here with Buckcherry? There's another tour coming up at the end of January, early February. As far as I remember, because I don't have any notes in front of me, but it goes till about March something.
Yep. There's already some shows that I think were listed in July as well. But we start in Champaign, Illinois, on the 30th of this month. We'll all be at NAMM too here in about a week. And then we start doing some shows. We're starting the year out with a bunch of fly shows. We're doing some in Florida. We're doing some in Texas.
And the Gibson Theater, there's some kind of acoustic recording coming up as well.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think I have all the information on that. I think you got that from Stevie.
I got that from Stevie.
But we're working on some stuff. I'm gonna actually be going into the studio on Saturday to track some things which I don't think I'm allowed to talk about just yet. But there is going to be some music coming out and things to look forward to. So we're just going to remain active. We had a big year of touring, this past year. So we're going to go to some of the hot spots for sure and see where it develops from there. But, it should be a full year again of touring and work and
hopefully a new album.
Right.
And of course, we'll finish this by saying the best bagels you had were obviously in Montreal.
Yes, absolutely.
There you go. Yeah, weren't they great? Yeah. So there we go. And I'm looking forward to new music. I mean, I've only got a 200 song playlist. Let's make it 212. Why not?
Yeah. Absolutely. Need some definite new stuff.
Definite new stuff. And what I need most though is your drumming style. I mean, I would love if you do like a 15th anniversary of 15 to have a live bonus disc of you running through the whole thing with the new band, and so you could sort of be the original vibe and be the new vibe. Because I as a fan, I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah,
but
I would love to get a live, a proper live recording of what we've done, because I think there's nights that the band's just on fire, and I think it would be great to have something like that.
Well, listen, how many shows did I see? I think I saw 3. There was oh no, you did that tour last year. Were you on that tour last year with Lit and POD?
No, I came in right after that.
You came right after that. Okay, so I saw the Montreal show and the Ottawa show, and that Ottawa show at Barrymore's, the band was on fire. I mean, you were great in Montreal, but the venue was sort of spread out and stuff like that. This Barrymore's one, that was the crowd was right in your face, and the band, and it was hot as hell, and it was. Yeah. It's a great band.
Venues make a difference. If you can actually hear properly what the band is articulating on stage, that makes a big difference.
It does.
If there's some venues that you walk in and all you hear are cymbals, that's not going to give you the same effect as a proper venue. So.
I'll tell you, I've seen a bunch of bands in these venues that are sort of squished, where this is the ceiling and this is the floor, and you go, well, where's the sound going to go? It's like a tunnel, right? And it sounds like crap. And then you have this Barrymore's where there's a big sort of, and the sound can sort of spread out, and you're like, that's what they sound like. Okay. Right. And I think that's maybe a little bit of Montreal. The Montreal one was one of these squished venues, and it's spread out, and I was like, well, the sound just, that was great.
Yeah. And then the big stages, of course, sound amazing. I've seen some videos of like the Incarnation Fest that we did, and just some fan videos that they did, on YouTube, and it's like, yeah, that's what it's supposed to sound like,
Well, let's get you back out there, and let's hopefully maybe get you on a package. I think on that Motley Crue package. Yes, we love Joan Jett, but I think Buckcherry doing, half an hour to 40 minutes to kick off a dirty night of dirty rock and roll with Motley Crue would have been perfect. But
that would be amazing.
Yeah,
I think the fans would definitely dig that, and we of course would.
Yeah, I mean, yes, okay, they're going to say, well, you're not playing in front of 60,000, you'd be playing for 7,000, or you'd be playing for 10,000 who show up early. What the fuck's wrong with that?
That's not a drag. Yeah.
That's fine, because you'll be selling merch to 60,000 people eventually. So anyway, thank you, sir. Always a pleasure, and let's do this again, and anytime you want, and let's plug. There's Wi-Fi's funeral with, of course, Buckcherry doing a Crazy Bitch. And Stevie was, of course, telling me about some other stuff coming up, including some acoustic recordings. He said it on air. These are not secrets, or not secrets for much longer. But there we go. And hopefully a new album. And Warpaint, if you haven't picked it up, and I know you don't play on it, it's a great album. It's a fun album.
It is. A lot of great songs on that. And, we'll keep plugging away. And I appreciate, your support. And it's awesome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Cheers. Hold on a second.
Here's Paul Stanley to tell you why he doesn't want to shake your hand.
Some people might have a little rock and roll pneumonia.
Ugh, not even cold gin will kill those germs. This is Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.